the turntables, Wolf get on the keyboard, and we gon' run this one, you heard?
New Orleans, late 1980s. A young boy with dreadlocks too big for his head holds a cracked microphone in his hand. The world outside is chaos, sirens, gunshots, and the sound of rain hitting broken rooftops. But inside that tiny room, something extraordinary is being born. They called him Dwayne Michael Carter Jr. The streets called him Wheezy. And the world would one day call him a genius. He wasn't supposed to make it. Raised by a single mother, surrounded by violence, fame was never in the plan. Survival was. Yet from that pain, he carved poetry. From the chaos, he built rhythm. But genius comes with a curse. Behind the millions, the tattoos, and the fame, lies a man who nearly lost everything. To addiction, to betrayal, to himself. So, how did a boy from the Holly Grove projects rise to rule the rap world and survive its destruction? This is not just the story of a rapper. It's the story of a child who turned pain into art and became Lil Wayne, the voice of a generation. Dwayne Michael Carter Jr. was born on September 27, 1982, in the heart of Holly Grove, one of New Orleans' toughest neighborhoods, a place where dreams didn't survive long unless you fought for them. His mother, Jacida Carter, was just 19, juggling 2 jobs and endless hope. His father left before Dwayne could even speak his name. That absence would echo through his life, shaping every lyric he ever wrote about pain, loyalty, and loss. In the chaos of broken streets and sirens, music became his sanctuary. At only 8 years old, he began scribbling rhymes in a school notebook, mimicking the rappers he heard on the radio. The words came out raw, full of heartbreak and hunger. But at 12, everything changed. One evening, overwhelmed and lost, young Dwayne found his mother's gun and accidentally shot himself in the chest. It could have been the end. A police officer named Uncle Bob found him bleeding on the floor. Instead of waiting for an ambulance, he carried the boy to the hospital himself, saving his life. That moment became a symbol in Wayne's story. Even in the darkest corner, there was light. After that, nothing could stop him. He saw death. He met survival, and he understood that every breath was borrowed time. From that day, the microphone wasn't just a tool. It was his lifeline. And in the pulse of New Orleans, amidst smoke and struggle, Lil Wayne was born. After the near-death experience, Dwayne Carter came back with a new kind of fire. One that couldn't be taught, only survived. At just 9 years old, he started calling the local radio station every day, freestyling live until the DJs couldn't ignore him anymore. One of them finally handed his demo tape to a rising label from New Orleans, Cash Money Records. That's where Brian "Birdman" Williams entered the story, a man who would become both mentor and father figure. Birdman saw something rare in the skinny kid with the crooked smile and hungry eyes. "He's not just a rapper," Birdman once said. "He's a machine." Wayne became the youngest artist ever signed to Cash Money. By 12, he was recording in smoky studios where grown men twice his age rapped about survival. He wasn't supposed to belong there, but his voice, that raw, raspy energy, made everyone stop and listen. In 1997, he joined the rap group The Hot Boys, alongside Juvenile, BG, and Turk. Their southern swagger and trap-driven beats reshaped hip-hop's geography, proving that the South had its own sound, gritty, playful, and powerful. Then came his first solo album, The Block Is Hot, 1999, recorded when he was just 16. It debuted in the Billboard Top 10 and went platinum within months. Overnight, the world met Lil Wayne, a prodigy from the projects who rapped like he had lived 1,000 lives. He had found his voice, his fame, and his father figure in Birdman. But what he didn't know yet was that the same bond that built him would one day break him. By the early 2000s, Lil Wayne was no longer just a Southern success story. He was rewriting the DNA of hip-hop. While most rappers needed notebooks, Wayne memorized entire verses in his head, spitting bar after bar with a rhythm that felt effortless, electric, and unpredictable. In 2004, The Carter dropped, and it wasn't just an album, It was a declaration. Wayne had grown from the hot boy kid to a lyrical assassin, his metaphors sharp as razors. His raspy drawl became a signature, a sound no one could copy. When he rapped, the world listened. With the Carter II and Dedication mixtapes, he proved he wasn't chasing trends. He was setting them. By 2008, the Carter III exploded into history, selling over 1 million copies in its first week. The hit single Lollipop dominated airwaves, turning the tattooed rapper from New Orleans into a global phenomenon. He was now the face of hip-hop, and its wildest rebel. Cameras followed him everywhere. Tour buses, recording studios, award shows. He became known for his diamond grills, his dreadlocks, his codeine-filled styrofoam cups, and his endless work ethic. But success came with a shadow. Between sleepless nights and studio marathons, Wayne began numbing himself, escaping the weight of fame in purple haze and painkillers. The boy who once escaped death was now dancing dangerously close to it again. Still, at his peak, he lifted others with him. He founded Young Money Entertainment, discovering two future megastars, Drake and Nicki Minaj. In their eyes, Wayne wasn't just a rapper, he was a godfather. Every verse he wrote, every beat he touched, changed the sound of a generation. But behind the glory and Grammys, something fragile was breaking. The lights were brightest, just before they began to burn him alive. At the height of his empire, Lil Wayne had everything: fame, money, and respect. But what the world didn't see was the storm building behind those half-closed eyes. Years of non-stop recording, drugs, and pressure blurred the lines between genius and self-destruction. Codeine, the purple syrup Wayne once called medicine for the mind, became his silent companion. Studio sessions turned into sleepless marathons. His words got slower, his health weaker, and then came 2010. Police lights, sirens, headlines. Wayne was arrested for illegal gun possession, sentenced to 8 months at Rikers Island. For the first time, the man who seemed untouchable was caged like any other mortal. Inside the cold concrete walls, he wrote, pages and pages of rhymes, reflections, regrets. In a letter to his fans, he said, "Don't ever think you're bigger than life, until life shows you how small you are." When he got out, things didn't get easier. The unbreakable bond with Birdman, his mentor, his father, began to crumble. Lawsuits, contract battles, and betrayal tore Cash Money apart. The man who helped him rise was now standing in his way. Fans feared it was the end. Rumors spread about his health, his sanity, his will to live. Even his music, once lightning in a bottle, began to sound like pain on repeat. But true artists don't die in darkness. They rewrite their story in it. And as the world started doubting him, Lil Wayne began planning something no one expected. A rebirth, years in the making. Prison didn't break him, it purified him. When Lil Wayne walked out of Rikers Island, he wasn't the same man who went in. He had seen how fragile life truly was, and how quickly a king could lose his crown. For years, he fought not just his label, but his own demons. Lawsuits stacked up, promises broke down, and his long-awaited album Thaw Carter 5 sat locked away in legal limbo. Fans waited. The industry whispered that Wayne was finished. But legends don't fade. They evolve. He retreated into the studio, away from cameras, away from noise. He focused on what first saved him: music. No entourage, no filters, just Wayne and the mic, bleeding truth into every line. In 2018, after nearly a decade of silence and struggle, Thaw Carter 5 finally dropped. It wasn't just an album, it was a resurrection. The songs weren't about money or fame anymore. They were about freedom, forgiveness, and faith. He opened up about his mental battles, his near-death experiences, and the redemption that comes with surviving your own chaos. He even reconciled with Birdman, ending years of bitterness with a simple hug on stage. The boy who once called him father had finally found peace in forgiveness. Now older, wiser, and free, Lil Wayne stood not as a victim of fame, but as its survivor. He had lost everything that didn't matter. and rediscovered everything that did. The voice that once shook the world had grown quieter, but deeper, and in that stillness, Wayne reclaimed not just his career, he reclaimed himself. Few artists can say they changed the sound of an entire generation, but Lil Wayne did. From the streets of New Orleans to the stages of the world, he turned pain into poetry and chaos into rhythm. Every bar he rapped, every mixtape he dropped, every metaphor he twisted, became a blueprint for modern hip-hop. The swagger, the slang, the auto-tuned rebellion, it all began with him. Without Wayne, there would be no Drake, no Nicki Minaj, no Young Thug, no Travis Scott. He didn't just influence them, he built the bridge they walked on. Through his label, Young Money Entertainment, he created a legacy not written on awards, but on people. Artists he mentored went on to dominate charts, win Grammys, and redefine pop culture. But Wayne's influence isn't only musical, it's cultural. He made tattoos, dreadlocks, and raw vulnerability a language of self-expression. He showed that intelligence could hide behind slang, that art could live inside pain, and most of all, that being different isn't a weakness, it's a weapon. He became a living contradiction, a poet and a rebel, a mentor and a misfit, a man who nearly died young but lived long enough to watch his students become legends. When future generations rap their truths, whether they know it or not, they're echoing the man who once said, "I am not a human being, I'm music." Today, Lil Wayne no longer chases the spotlight. It finds him. But the man standing beneath it now is quieter, wiser, and softer than the myth that came before. He spends most of his time with family, skateboards in his backyard, and laughs easily, a sound once rare in his world. In interviews, he doesn't talk about fame or money. He talks about gratitude, about how waking up every morning feels like a miracle he doesn't take for granted anymore. He has learned that survival isn't about staying at the top. It's about staying alive long enough to grow. He admits the mistakes, the pain, and the darkness that once consumed him. But he wears them now like medals, proof of battles fought and lessons earned. Wayne often says his real legacy isn't the Grammys or records sold. It's the people he inspired to dream louder, to speak their truth, to never apologize for who they are. In his words, "I'm not trying to be the best rapper alive anymore. I'm trying to be the best me alive." There's a calmness in him now, the kind that comes only after fire. He's still the same kid from Hollygrove deep down, but now he raps not to survive. He raps to live. In the story of Lil Wayne, we don't just see a rapper. We see a survivor, a poet, and a mirror reflecting what it means to rise, fall, and rise again. From a child with a gunshot wound to a man crowned by millions, his journey is proof that genius isn't born from comfort. It's forged in pain, sharpened by failure, and lit by belief. Wayne once said, "I'm just trying to turn my life into lyrics." And he did. Every scar became a verse, every heartbreak a hook, every mistake a melody. He turned a life that could have ended too soon into a soundtrack that never stops playing. And in doing so, he gave a generation permission to be flawed, fearless, and free. Because in the end, this isn't just his story. It's a reminder that even when the world tries to silence you, your voice can still change everything. This is the legacy of Lil Wayne, the boy who refused to die and became the heartbeat of hip-hop.